The Crimson Pact! The thick fog clung to the ground as if it were alive, swirling around the boots of anyone foolish enough to venture out at night in the desolate countryside. The Duke of Blackthorn and the Earl of Ravenshire were names spoken only in whispers, their titles laced with rumors that would send shivers down the spine of even the bravest villagers. The two men lived in dark castles, separated by forests and a winding river, both steeped in centuries of eerie history. One autumn night, the town's young and curious historian, Thomas Gray, set off on a mission. He'd spent months poring over ancient manuscripts, following every lead, determined to uncover the truth behind the Duke and the Earl. According to faded records and unsettling tales, the two had been alive for centuries, appearing in portraits and written descriptions dating back at least 300 years. The people who once challenged their rule had all vanished mysteriously, leaving behind only vague accounts of figures moving through the shadows and strange marks found on abandoned bodies. Thomas arrived at Blackthorn Manor just after midnight, its stone towers looming over him like skeletal fingers reaching for the moon. He took a deep breath, clutching his leather satchel filled with what he hoped would be enough protection: a silver dagger, a wooden stake, and a small vial of holy water. He'd heard enough to know that if the Duke and the Earl were truly vampires, he'd need every possible tool at his disposal. The castle doors creaked open on their own, as if sensing his presence. The chill in the air grew sharper as he crossed the threshold, but he pressed on, each step echoing through the massive halls lined with grand tapestries of ancient battles. He could feel eyes watching him, though no servants or guards appeared. Finally, he reached a dimly lit parlor, and there, seated at an ornate table draped in crimson, sat the Duke and the Earl. They were both unnaturally pale, with skin as white as bone, and eyes that shimmered with an unsettling intelligence. The Duke had piercing green eyes, while the Earl were a deep, unfathomable black. Their smiles held no warmth, only the sharp glint of teeth hidden beneath lips as red as fresh blood. "Mr. Gray," the Duke said in a soft, velvety voice, "we've been expecting you." Thomas froze, his hand brushing the dagger in his satchel. You know who I am?" "Indeed," replied the Earl, leaning back in his chair with a feline grace. The historian with a penchant for curiosity. Curiosity is dangerous. Wouldn't you agree? The men's words sent a chill down Thomas's spine. He hadn't spoken a word to anyone about his investigation. No one should have known. He took a step backward, heart pounding as he realized just how deep he'd already fallen into their trap. "I've come to ask you both a question," he stammered. "Are the rumors true? Are you vampires?" The Duke chuckled softly. "Vampire, demon, creature of the night. There are many names for those like us, and all are equally true." Thomas's hand trembled as he gripped the vial of holy water in his pocket, but as if sensing his fear, the Earl stood, moving with an unnatural speed to stand directly before him, blocking his path to the door. "You're braver than most who come here, Mr. Gray, but bravery alone does not ensure survival." With a movement too quick to track, the Earl reached out, lifting Thomas's chin so he could look directly into those bottomless black eyes. "Do you really think those trinkets will save you?" In a last desperate attempt, Thomas flung the holy water, droplets landing on the Earl's hand. For a brief moment, they hissed and sizzled, but he only laughed, a low, dark sound that echoed through the empty hall. "You have spirit," he said, "but you cannot defeat us. Not here." The Duke moved to stand beside his companion, a sinister harmony between them as they drew closer, both eyes gleaming with hunger. "We have lived through centuries, fed off the foolish, the brave, the curious," the Duke whispered, his words brushing against Thomas like a cold breeze. "You are simply the next in line." Thomas stumbled backward, gripping the stake in his hand, but it was too late. Shadows seemed to gather around him, his vision blurring as the Duke and the Earl moved in unison, sharp teeth glinting in the dim light. Just before he lost consciousness, he felt the sharp, cold pierce of fangs sinking into his neck, draining the life from him as if he were little more than an offering. The villagers found his body the next morning, pale and lifeless, 2 small puncture wounds on his neck. By that night, the Duke and the Earl were back in their castles, their immortality renewed and their secret safe once more. For now.